Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hi.
And we're back.
With the Dudecast.
The Dudecast.
Let's go.
It is the Dudecast. You know, to piggyback off that, I think in the new year, did I tell you how Jeannie Jeannie has insisted pretty much that three of us, once a month, the podcast is us. And it's like, dude, men, awareness, topics, stuff like that.
I love it.
I think,
I'm into it.
Yeah, I think that's she's totally pushing that. So I think be on the lookout January 25
That's
for
right.
a Dudecast date.
It will be very, very. I think it's a good balance to provide.
It is.
You know, because we got a lot of women energy, feminine energy around this business and in our lives.
I know, and I think, I think it'd be really good because even just like in the past couple years, I've like made a couple friends and like come over to our house and smoke a cigar on the porch.
Yeah,
and it's always like, I need this. This is nice to have these kind of conversations. So I think it's needed. I think it's necessary, and I think it'll be fun too. So
definitely.
It's funny because most of my male friendships involve strangulation. Like there's a lot of laying on the ground together. It's weird, you know. It's nice to just talk to you guys.
That balance for that too.
Yeah.
You know, like for your friendships.
Balance,
you know, sometimes you're strangling and wrestling, and sometimes you're just having a Dudecast.
Yeah, it all has its time and place.
It all counts.
It's all good.
It's funny. Jeannie did mention she thinks, or said something like, men need an activity, whereas women or feminine energy people can just more like be a lot of times. A lot of times, if men like. The activity could be anything. It could be digging a hole for a fence or something, right?
That sounds awesome.
I know, right?
You guys wanna do that
It does sound kind of fun, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, don't say that because we want to put some kind of fence in around our yard.
Oh,
and
God.
once the ground thaws out.
I have a post hole digger, man.
Do you
Let's
really?
do this.
Oh, my
yeah.
gosh. We could do a whole video podcast.
This is why
Yoga
we do
farm
this.
post hole digging.
That would be good for the algorithm.
Yeah.
We'll pull in a whole different group of people.
know.
Really different.
Turn it into a calendar.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
This episode is coming out after New Year's, I think the 3rd. So last couple we've been like talking about like the holidays and Christmas time. But I thought on the way in, I was thinking about New Year's. Like, what do you guys? What's your New Year's look like this day and age?
Oh man, New Year's has been for us has gone completely like geriatric, like full on. Like I couldn't. I find myself watching. Like switching between the ball drop channels and just being appalled, like with how boring it is.
They have commercials on the ball. Like
It's unbelievable, and yet, it's like what else? You know, like I guess I used to go out, used to go to parties, like that kind of thing, ball drop things like that, and it's like with young children, it feels like. That would be so much effort in the opposite direction of what I'm always trying to do. like why torture myself at all? You know, like
so I mean, obviously the toddlers wouldn't buy this, but the older ones, could you get away with doing like a fake ball drop at like 10?
We have.
Oh, you have?
Oh, yes.
I totally
yes.
did that for like 5 years. We pretended, and we would show a ball drop on YouTube from like some other year. They didn't know.
No, they just like the exercise, and they think they stayed up till midnight.
And they're like, "Oh, I stayed up late. It was like 8:30."
Right,
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that is the fun.
I saw something on the my algorithm. I'm like, that is genius. Like if I had young children, God, I would try to get away with that until they were 12.
Oh yeah,
try so hard.
We're gonna go for as long as we can. I think. Like we're in that window now.
Now my kids are old enough that they don't want anything to do with us on New Year's, and so it's kind of easier.
Right.
You know, But I've been thinking this year, I really want to just do a quiet meditation retreat. Like I really
that would
feel
be
like
great.
called to just
Like start
be
a
by
new year that
myself.
way?
Yeah, because I haven't been alone in like 18 years.
Oh yeah,
It's crazy. Like you know, you guys know.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I sometimes say that where I'm like because I get up early, like to go to the gym or meditate or whatever.
Is that like
that's my alone time,
right?
you know? And Francine is like, why? Like, how could you get up so early? And I'm like, it's literally the only time in my life that I'm alone, like ever, you know, like, and I can remember that being a desire. I grew up in a household where we shared bedrooms and like, You know, like until I can remember thinking, I don't know why I was talking about this the other day, that like taking a shower when I was a kid was the only time I was ever alone. And even then, it was like my parents could walk in at any second, you know, like, or brothers or sisters like we shared a bathroom, all 5 of us. So it's like you know, I would cherish like my time in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, it was my only time that I could have at least the semblance of privacy, you know, like, and it's similar now where it's like, that's like another time that I'm alone.
I mean, I met Jeannie and the kids were, Eden was maybe 9 and Abby, the oldest Abby, was 14. So they were kind of like teens or preteens. So there wasn't that kind of like elementary school level, like they're on you like all the time. They definitely were starting to be independent. But still, like, even like when they would go to their dad's every other weekend and on Thursdays, they were still like around. So like, even then, I'm like, holy cow, you guys are like always here. Like, not even thinking about like, oh, there's like parents that have small children who are always there.
Yes.
So
here's a dude cast thing. I'll blow up one of the secrets. Is like my happy space to this day, bathroom, door locked,
100%,
shower running, fan on. I'm in there reading. Like there's no showering happening, you know, but like that is where I get my space still.
There we go.
Day,
yeah.
It's a cheat code.
And I had memories, even when I was like young teenager, of my dad would get home from work and like immediately go into his bedroom, and even at like a Friday, I'm like, it's Friday, we're hanging out, you know. It's like, and he's like, he would go immediately in the bedroom, and like I didn't get it until I was like 35. I'm like, okay, yeah, you just like drove home from work and everyone's here, and you can't deal with all this. I need 15 minutes.
Yeah,
oh my God,
that decompression. Yeah.
Well, and I think like also working from home is like one of those things where I think about, I can't even imagine what you just explained. You know, like where it's like my wife being okay with like being with because my mom was a stay-at-home mom from my childhood, and being home. My dad did the same exact thing. Like he'd come home and it's not like he like jumped right in the fray, you know, like he came home and he sat down and like for a while, you know, like and like, cause that was how my mom set it up for him. And like, that was what they experienced when they were kids. And like the culture has completely shifted to where like, my sons will never know their dad that way, you know, like where it's like where their dad is unavailable to them because their mom says so. It's like, actually, no, you get in here, you know, like you got to be kidding me, you know, like what are you thinking, you know? And so it's like there's so much more balance. And also working from home is like, they are always with you, you know, like even when you're working, my sons are at my knees, you know, like asking me for things and stuff like that. So
it's those days of like, was a commute that bad?
I know. Oh, like I did think, I find myself thinking like, man, I remember like taking a 40-minute train ride into Soho from Astoria and thinking like, this is amazing. Like, and thinking like, this is 40 minutes where I can do whatever I want. I can read. I can like, and I loved that part of my day, you know, like, and even going to work, you know, like I think about my brothers like who go to work every day, you know, like, and I think like what an interesting difference in relationship, in parenting, in all of it. 'Cause the balance like has been that way for a long time for men, I feel like, in the work world. And then like now it's like completely shifted to where it's like, I saw like a stat that who knows, how do they measure it and who knows if it's true. It's like that men these days, fathers these days are spending like 3 times as much time with their children as their parents did, as their dad did. And, you know, thinking about my grandpa, it's like he spent even less time. Like my dad was like such an improvement on that type of attention, you know? And it's like funny though, because I don't think my parents felt like they were lacking at all in anything, like from attention from their dad, or they were just used to it. You know, like that was just what they expected.
If that's your normal.
You're normal, exactly.
You don't know anything else, right?
It's interesting.
You should like in the morning when you get up, just get in the car and like drive to Trumansburg and back.
I should, I got my commute in. I've thought about doing that. Like I definitely have thought about like creating a commute for myself, and it's not going to fly though.
The audiobook time in the car when I'm driving down here and back. Like I look forward to that. And it's not because I don't want to see my kids, but it's just this great, you know, time where I can be silent. Nobody asks anything of you.
Yes.
You
can own it.
And you listen to your book or your music or whatever.
Totally. Yeah. Same.
It's
well, this is a great preview. I think this is like, if we were doing, this is a dude cast topic. I think we don't even need to like find a book to read.
That's right.
We just found it. I love it.
Right? Are you guys big New Year's Eve or New Year's resolutions guys?
No. The closest I ever came to was a couple years ago. I did a dry January.
Okay.
And then I tried to do a thing every month. Like a month was like, oh, this is the month that like I'll do meditation. It was like meditation March, and I tried to do something, and it was like somehow I tied it into Ben Franklin wrote something about like the 13 virtues or something.
Yeah,
and I tried to like find one a month, and I think I got through like April or May, and then like life happened and I fell off, right? Yeah. But there was a few months where like, because like picking one or two things for like, this is for the year, I'm like, that seems so daunting. I'm like, I'll pick something from January, and then like we'll go from there. So that's the closest I've ever come to something like that.
I keep a bullet journal. You guys familiar with that?
I've heard of it, and I don't know what it is.
You can look at the YouTube video. The guy who created it has like a free video that explains exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
I have ADD, but I don't take any of the medications for it because I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict, so I shouldn't take any of those things. But the bullet journaling is really, really effective for me. It's the only kind of organizational tool I've ever done that works.
Interesting.
And so in the new year, the way that bullet journals work is you kind of have like the whole year at a glance, and then you have your month at a glance, and then you have like your daily thing, and you migrate tasks or goals or whatever from month to month, year to year. Cool. And so I kind of have gotten into the habit, and I like doing this a lot. It feels good to do it, as I'll like set my whole kind of intentions for the year, professionally and at home, like house projects, things like that. And so it's not really like resolutions, but it is sort of like, I guess, an intention setting or a goal setting.
Plan of action kind of thing, yeah.
And it makes me kind of look at, okay, what did I get done, last year, and what should I just strike off this thing because I'm not doing it,
That's cool. So things like actually they stick over from year to year as well?
Yeah, you have this system of migration. It's really simple. It's basically you like cross stuff off or exit when you do it, or you migrate it. And if you keep migrating something week after week, month after month, there's a point where it's like, but so I've had to determine like, well, okay, what are the things that I really don't do? And usually it's stuff that's important but not urgent. I'm really okay at getting urgent stuff done. So as soon as like Jeannie's like, you need to do this, I'll do it. But like if it's just kind of looming and it's on me, but nobody really cares if it gets done.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff I migrate a lot.
Well, that's the dangerous part where it's like, I want this thing done, but how bad and do I don't know, and there's other things that come up, so back burner.
You have to think about it, and that helps me to sort of be like, no, this isn't just a thing to keep kicking down the curve. I want to get this done, and then I try to make it urgent somehow.
That's cool. Yeah, I also ADD, and I don't take any medication for it because I don't feel like the medications I've taken have been beneficial. Like it feels like it's meth, like
they're rough on your body for sure.
It's rough on, and just like it's sleep habits and everything and eating and all that kind of stuff. And that is with kids definitely one of my largest challenges is like remembering to do the things I have to do. Because it's like there's no time for anything, so like the things that I really am putting off, I like can literally erase them from my mind completely. Even though they're like very important things, like things I have to pay or like things I have to do on time. And it's like, I could be like, well, I'll do that like tomorrow. and a million times in a row to where it's like, it's a stress. So like, definitely the beginning of the year for me is always an intention to create discipline. Yeah. Like I'm always trying to like, all right, now we're going to get a schedule going, this is it. Now it's time, and now it's starting over. So like we can start now and for me, that's like, it's always how my new year starts is like thinking of what can I change incrementally and like make a habit of, like I try to think like, what can I make a habit of right now? Because I've done all the different things. I've done like big resolutions, like this year, I'm not going to watch as much stuff. Right. Like I love movies. Like I love consuming that content. It's what I make like videos. It's like I love the art form and it's a time suck. you know, like, and it's like a thing that like I've wanted to prohibit, and then it's like, God,
Yeah,
no, it's gone. Yeah, I thought about it at least, you know, but it's tough.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, Jeannie talks about, because we talked about like New Year's being in January, and for like the pagan calendar, there's Imbolc, which is February, like early February, like the second, like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
And like that, I think it translates to like in the belly, like gestating and like planning things you want to grow in the future.
Yeah, right.
So like when I heard that, I'm like, oh, so I get like a New Year's resolution do-over.
Yeah.
If I slip up in January. I actually like it because it takes the pressure off. I'm like, okay, I don't need to have this big intention set on this day. I can like take a few weeks.
Yeah,
and
to
be
think
like,
about it.
What's gonna resonate? What's gonna land, and what am I gonna really find that's something I like move forward with, and like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's
give yourself
funny.
a break.
The Chinese lunar calendar starts around the same time as that. And it's funny because the Chinese would be like sort of, you know, they would think it was ridiculous if you would try to start a new big project, especially something physical in January. They're like, you have no energy. Why would you do that?
Yeah, it's the worst time of year. Like
it's
to start
not
that.
when you start stuff. But
that's true.
if you feel it in February, something does change where like a little part of my body is like, I got to move. I'm sick of being inside, you know?
Yeah.
And that's usually when I can get a lot done, is from February through to the, you know, late spring. It's like I've got nothing but energy then.
Yeah, this
That's
is
true.
Definitely, like, I mean, of course, it's like the sun sets at 4:15.
Yeah,
But like,
that's getting me.
Even when the sun is up, I'm like, I got nothing. Like, I am in total hibernation.
I feel that way
kind
too.
of low power mode until January. And like,
Yeah.
there's such a cultural intensity to like New Year's, new you, change all this stuff, and it's like, it's not really like you said. I think like once February rolls around, the days are a little longer, like the sun's up a little bit more, and I think that's like the start. You start to be like, oh, there's sunshine, the spring will come, and then it's like March is only 4 weeks away. So like I think that's
true.
the part of like, all
there's
right,
hope.
We're moving towards it. We're closer now than we were on the solstice. You know,
literally
what I mean?
light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Well, and it's like you're building up, like, and every year, I know that in America at least, we've been so conditioned to the holidays, like in terms of just like what that means, and for work, for it's like the end of the fourth quarter, so it's like there's like a finality to the capitalistic calendar itself that feels pressuring. It's like, and so once it's over, I think like that's why New Year's feels like, it's like, oh, okay. Shit, all right.
It's the end of the fiscal year, boys.
We're done. Like, we get to start again. You know, like everything that happened last year is over. And like, I like the turning of the page aspect of it for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't feel the energy boost until February starts to come, you know, like January, I'm like, oh shit. Like, it's like fighting uphill, you know, a little bit to make those changes. So I like that. I like starting it in February.
Yeah.
I think we should all get a month to ruminate.
We should.
On like what we really want for the year.
Yeah.
And that's what you would do too in the sort of Chinese years. You would be like contemplative. You'd be sort of meditating, thinking about what you want, keeping your energy close and conserving it. Wow. You know, and so that makes sense to me for sure. Just kind of get real quiet and think.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. If you have them while you're in the bathroom.
Yeah, in the bathroom.
Or on your commute.
Yeah, with the fan on. And
Oh my God, I love that.
That's
but
great.
all that is not what we're here to talk about initially.
Yeah.
We are here to talk about Qigong Level 2.
Hey.
Woo! This is
Yeah.
exciting. So if I knew nothing about Qigong, I know even less about Qigong Level 2.
Me
Yeah.
too. Yes.
it's like
Another
twice as not knowing.
Exactly.
So this is starting in like what would be the spring semester, right? This upcoming.
Yep, it's starting towards the end of January. And so one thing I think is useful to kind of lead with, because it's going to be a question people will have, is like, do you have to have done a level 1 to do level 2? And the answer is you do not. We do want a certain level of familiarity with basic Qigong, which a lot of the people who did level 1 have. You know, so maybe they did an online training somewhere else, or they had a teacher and they trained, you know, locally somewhere. So, you know, what we're not trying to do is download a lot of basic theory, posture, all that stuff. And we are going to be leading with basically really interesting, exciting new movement patterns, big sets comparative to the first level. Ooh. But yeah, so we had our level 1. Our level 1 included all this basic foundational posture, breath work, theory, and then, we learned a lot of sets. We learned like 6 different Qigong sets.
Okay. When you say set, is how, I guess, many postures or how much time would a set be? Like, what does the set look like?
Great question, because that is in some ways what the biggest difference between level 1 and level 2 is. So any sort of combined grouping of movements that have a similar intention or structure become a set, and they're usually named. Like they're named kind of forms, if you will.
Is this like a Kundalini Kriya? In a way, like I'm not sure how familiar you are with that.
That would be something I don't know too much about.
Well, a Kundalini Kriya, from what I know, is like there are certain poses, breath practices all together in one Kriya that make a.
It's a very similar.
Seems like
idea.
the same thing.
Yes,
okay,
like
definitely.
Yeah,
like a set, right? Yeah,
for particular purposes to have particular outcomes. It's like it is from editing both courses. I can tell you it is quite similar organizationally.
There you go.
From there.
Yep. So it's like a Kriya. Yeah, and it's interesting because like some of the sets are really, really old. Like in our level 1, we do a set called the Baduan Jin.
Oh, I know that one from the transcript.
Yep, you guys have seen that.
Represent.
And that was developed by a general a long time ago as sort of like a daily dozen for soldiers. It was just an exercise set they would do first thing in the morning. Wow. Apocryphally, it was called that. But, a lot of these things evolved over time, with different doctors usually kind of making their own little touch on it.
Cool.
So different sets have different purposes, and almost all of the sets in level 1 were relatively short sets. We would do somewhere between 5 to 10 movements max. And they were always very straightforward in terms of the principle of movement being very clear. You would be doing basic Qigong to do those sets. So when we get into this idea of like, well, what makes Qigong advanced versus more, I don't want to say basic, but foundational, is that if our foundational movements, our basic movements, are sort of like an alphabet, then advanced sets are like composing a poem or making a story out of it.
What a beautiful metaphor.
Great way to put it.
I can't take credit for it. I'm sure somebody smarter than me said that at some point. But
well, when I repeat that, I'm going to quote you. I'll say Brian.
That's right. Me too. I'll credit you, and then you can credit them.
And so the first set that we'll be learning is the Shaolin Neigong. Neigong means internal work. Shaolin is a kind of a martial monastery that's become a cultural site in China. So you've probably seen videos of like the martial monks, right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
They've become quite a traveling roadshow in the world, really. Like they actually literally have like a performance team.
Really?
And so we, in the level 1, we did this very basic foundational posture-based thing called the Shaolin Sinew Changes. With Shaolin Neigong, we slow down and we create this internal connection to the movement. But what we're doing is we're essentially connecting our legs and our spine. So that's kind of the way that we're going to begin in level 2. Cool. And then we move into a really big, really long, really, really, really fun set called the Tian Gan, or Heavenly Stem set. And this is where we really start unlocking and mobilizing the spine. So a lot of the first level was simply unlocking and mobilizing the joints, getting the joints kind of connected to the trunk and the body while we were doing this breath work and movement. Now we're going to keep all that, but we're going to be utilizing different areas of the spine to generate rotation, flexion, and extension. And the spine is this very powerful channel for yang energy in Chinese theory. So what we're doing is essentially unlocking this kind of source of strength in the body and connecting it to the feet and the root. So it's one of my very favorite sets, Tiangan is.
Cool.
And it's a long one. It's got over 20 movements in it.
Wow.
How long does that take time-wise to do? Or?
So the level 2 is a longer program. It's about a 6-month program almost. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's I don't want to speak offhand, but like all the material is in the, you can check it out if you're interested. But it's a longer program, although we tried to keep an eye towards sustainability. So what we did was we dropped a day, added some time to the training session. So we'll be meeting on like Thursdays and Sundays as our core classes.
Cool.
And they're going to be all movement. Like
Sweet.
not a lot of
Lecture.
talking, lots of
Yeah.
movement,
Nice.
lots of, practice. So yeah, the Tiangong will take a while to get through, and then we'll be practicing it and performing it.
Oh, that's cool. I found that, I mean, in the time I've been with Yoga Farm, seeing Jeannie do programs, something like there was a 300-hour program that she tried to do in what would be like a semester, like September to just January or December, and it was just like too much.
Yeah.
And then we stretched that out basically from September to June.
Yep, that's
and
what
that,
we're doing.
Yeah, that space is so necessary
Oh, yeah.
for like integration, right? Like not only just
gosh.
like retention and learning, but also like taking time to like do the practices and not just like cram it all in. Yeah.
And being able to like work and raise your kids,
Right.
like all
Yeah.
the good stuff. But and so the next big thing that we do in the level 2 is we're going to be moving from the feet and creating walking patterns. And this is where things are going to get kind of unique, where a lot of the Qigong that we do in level 1 is Qigong that people have done. They've seen this in various, you could go to a YMCA and take a class and maybe do this. Walking practices, you see a lot of it in China, but it's not as common in the States. But it's taking that coordinated breath with posture and principle-based movement, and then we start very slowly walking with it. So each step is a breath. And it's actually this like tremendous meditation, but it's also really good exercise. Like you'll be sweating and feeling warm, and
Is the pace of walking is slow, I assume. Right?
yeah, I mean, sometimes we'll go faster, but generally speaking, it's very slow walking. And so for folks that use things like Tai Chi and Qigong to improve balance and coordination, this is where you can see tremendous like leaps and bounds from it. Yeah, so we do about, I think, 6 different walking patterns where we're very slowly walking in lines and then turning around. There's a specific way that we root our foot and then use the waist and the hips to turn. And after we've really gotten a handle on those walking patterns, we take those walking patterns and all the principles that we've learned in level 1 and with the spinal Qigong, and we put it together in a very, very in-depth version of 5 animal play, which is another big set. And the 5 animal play takes kind of the energetic quality of the animal. There are versions where you sort of mimic the animal, you like acts like a monkey or something, but like this isn't really like that. It's a lot more abstract than that. But like, so we'll play with like how you use the strength of the shoulders the way a bear might, or the kind of nimbleness and the sinew and tendon strength of a deer.
That's cool.
And we do that walking in lines. And so it's like we put it all together into this really, I mean, to me, it's a really beautiful kind of composition of movement.
That's cool.
And once you get through all of that level 2 training, we finish with the advanced work of my teacher, Bin-Hui He, which was all meditation based.
Cool.
So we kind of, go from a lot of movement into total stillness. And
Nice.
Wow.
yeah.
That sounds complete.
That walking thing sounds amazing. And again, I'm thinking if my wife was right here, she would be saying, whether you like it or not, I'm signing you up for it, or you need to pay attention to the walking part, because when we walk anywhere, usually I'm like, I treat walking as it only serves to get me from where I am to where I need to go in the quickest amount of time possible, and no other reason.
That's what we do it for.
And Jeannie walks much more intentional and slower. And this January, we will have been married 10 years. And we're at the point now sometimes where it's like, I'm just going to walk and you can walk at your pace and we're going to the same place and I'll see you there. I remember seeing like my friends' parents do the same thing. And I was like, why aren't they walking next to each other? I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it.
Right.
Yes, because if only were to have me get to walk at a slower pace would be that's what she would appreciate out of that, just because I'm just like, phew. It's just like where my fire comes out. Like I'm the earth and fire. My fire is just like walking. That's like an unrealistic pace.
Well, what's cool is that with Chinese walking patterns, there's definitely a place for that. Like sometimes after we've done really intensive Neigong, doing a fast walk, the area in your abdomen and your low back. It's Dantian and Mingmen is what we call it. It's like this region of your body. But so after we would do these kind of grueling, long standing practices, we would walk, and our teacher would often come up, Tom Bizio would come up right behind you, put his hand on your low back where your Mingmen is. And like suddenly you'd feel yourself like you're on a train going faster, because he was like, no, you got to walk. And so you'd be like trucking all of a sudden. And so, I mean, there's room for all speeds. But the cool part about really slowing down walking is what you'll see is that your ankles and the small muscles and like the sinews, tendons, the fascia, all of that stuff has to structurally reintegrate when you're going that slow. And it forces you to really line your joints up. And so I've seen folks where they had pretty significant low back, lower extremity injuries, and this became the rehab for them, because essentially to correctly balance over the foot and then be able to pick the other foot up and move it in that slow fashion. And we do a lot of walking patterns. So like we might swing the leg around and then extend it up and then, you know, touch the heel and then bow and then come up, and that's one step.
Wow.
You know? So it's like you're really developing a lot of strength, flexibility, and mobility all at once doing these things.
Yeah, it makes me think of my algorithm is like golf exercises basically.
He's so good.
Well, yeah, no, I mean it's like there's
a
lot of like balance, there's a lot of like twisting, and there's a lot of like mobility or stability, strength training. Not like like squats are nice and bench press is nice, but like that fine motor control is like where, and it sounds like it's very similar. Like,
and it's wild because like watching it, it's like, yeah, I could see how that could be a little challenging. Then you do it and you're like dripping sweat and you're like on fire because it's so intense to do it slow the way we do. So I love it. I think it's a pretty key part of my longevity process, you know, is keeping my legs really, really structured and mobile.
Yeah. When you say the muscles in your feet and your ankles, it's interesting because it's how it applies in my life. Our house is, like I said, it's 200 years old. And so when you walk in my house, there is so much noise, like going on every single step, you know? And so when the boys go to sleep, you know, like I have to walk by their room, I'm consistently trying to walk as slow and as quiet as I possibly can, and thinking like, and having moments where I have one foot on the ground and the other one in the air and being like, oh my God, like don't step in the wrong spot because they're going to wake up. Like, and so thinking of my feet, like where I'm like, what the fuck? I cannot control my body like with just my,
it's hard.
And
right?
thinking about like, wow, like, I always think about like ninjas.
Yeah.
Like where I'm like, dude, how do they walk quietly? How can anyone walk quietly? Like, and thinking like, am I like an elephant, like stomping through the room? Because Francine would be like, I can hear every single step you take. Like I can hear while she's trying to put them to sleep, like in the room with them, because we put them both to sleep together. And I'll be outside of the room, like with all the lights off, like walking,
sneaky creeping.
Slow as I can. And thinking like, man, I wish I could strengthen. Like I need to work on my balance. Like that's what I keep thinking.
Well, so mud stepping is the very first thing we learn. It's like our foundational walking stance. And one thing that blew my mind, you guys are going to think I'm weird after I tell you this next part, and that's okay. So I'm a reader, and I like to read a lot of weird stuff. And one of the things that was like a great joy was when I discovered that all the United States military training manuals are by law free online.
Oh, really?
Like you can read literally, and they have everything, like how to build a house. Like they have like language learning, everything. So one of
I never knew that. That's cool.
Yeah, you can check it out. It's all free online. But so the Marine Corps Warfighting Manual and then the Guerrilla Warfare Tactical Manuals are, of course, the first things I read because I'm a dude, and that's awesome. And that's not very yoga form.
I love
that's
it.
What I'm into. So
I'm so interested in that.
So when I got to the section where they're talking about how do you quietly walk through enemy territory, like stealth mode at night, guess what they're doing? They're doing mud stepping. Wow. Like literally to the letter. They're like peeling their toes up, lifting the whole foot off the ground, strafing kind of over the ground, and then they'll touch with the ball of their foot and see if they're going to break a branch. And then they'll slowly like weight their foot down.
Wow.
And I was like, this is literally identical to mud stepping, which is
cool.
this practice. So I was like, oh, cool. I can creep like a sneaky creeper better, you know? And, but I have an old house too, so I feel you, man.
Yeah. Well, it's an unwinnable battle.
Yeah.
You know,
You're going
like,
to make noise.
Yeah.
Like,
I just have to let it go, and like they have to get used to it.
I mean, one time my wife got mad at me because she could hear me gulping in the other room. And so, I mean,
that's how quiet it has to be, though. It like
Yeah.
feels like I feel like I'm in like a quiet room where it's like any breath, anything I turn on, or if I drop, and I always drop something, you know, like, and it's like
crunching.
yeah,
like
anything at all. I don't eat anything. Like I'm waiting in silence in the other room. Like
yeah, I heard her voice and she was like, "Stop gulping," and I was like this. You know, I got scared.
Breathe quieter out there. The things we do to keep
That's
people
amazing. Hey,
sleep
man,
schedule.
You got it. I was gonna say,
so important.
You got to do a lot of stuff to make this household run.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's ninja training,
Yes,
it
it is
like,
being a dad. You know,
Marine
like
Corps war fighting.
that's right.
Well, it's funny they say the mud stepping in these military training manuals. It makes me think of like burpees. It's essentially a sped up form of a sun salutation.
Yeah,
in
it's
a
part
way,
of it.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot. If you look at sort of like hoplology or the sort of study of warfare, there's a lot of really interesting physical culture that's sort of embedded in that's taken for granted now. But if you like read the history of it, it's fascinating. It's always like one kind of crazy dude who got linked up with the military somehow. And like, so like for one thing is you see all these obstacle courses where they're like running around with these logs and swinging from stuff. That basically traced back to this French guy who was like one of the first really big movement specialists of the 20th century. Wow. And he was like, you need to be able to run, jump, push, pull. Yeah. You know, you need to be able to crawl. And his whole goal actually had nothing to do with the military. He said, if you want to be a strong person, you need to be able to pull somebody else out of a fire. Like you got to be able to save another human being, and then you're strong. And so I when I read that, I was like, oh, that's really cool. But like basically all modern military training methods come from this idea from this French dude who was like, if you want to be a good citizen, you need to be able to pull somebody out of a fire.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like that's altruistic and like.
Yeah, it's pretty different from how we use it now.
Well,
right?
but also like bringing in wisdom from other cultures and like learning from other military, you know, like because we're a relatively new country, you know, so our militaristic traditions are all hodgepodged from everywhere else, you know, like in a certain sense, right? It's like we're European, but then also like even bringing in like certain trainings and certain tests and certain things that our military does for like the Navy SEALs and like the Marines, like that all didn't just originate like from some badass like from the Marines, you know, like it's like they learned it from someone else and brought it in, you know.
A lot of times the East. Sorry.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, but they would never say it, you know, like obviously can't market it or propagandize something that's like, you know, from somewhere else.
Right.
Like it's like so.
Well, I mean, it makes me think of. I think it was George Washington and maybe Valley Forge with like they brought in a guy from like Prussia or Germany to like train, like Steuben, I think his name. He was like spent the winter training them in military, like so. Yeah, like the first Americans were like trained by Prussians or Eastern Europeans. So like nothing is.
Well, what a wise thing to do
here.
to pull from other people, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like the ignorance of one-mindedness, you know, like when it comes to especially something like military strategy or training, which is like we've been fighting wars forever, you know, like and it's developed, like the thinking on it develops with the technology, develops with the state of the world. Like that's so interesting to me. I love thinking about that stuff.
You said the study of. Was it soldiering or something?
Oh, like the history of combat is hoplology.
Hoplology.
It's kind of a fun word.
That
is.
It makes me think of a Greek hoplite
Yeah,
soldier.
yeah,
Is that what it comes from?
I don't know, but yeah, I think so. Like that would be
look at
my
that.
guess too. Yeah.
Freshman World Civ teacher.
There we go.
Still got it.
Still got it, baby.
But you know, it's funny because like when you look at Chinese training methods, like a lot of what we learn in level 2 certainly has origins within martial context. 5 animal play was medical. That was developed by a guy named Hua To, who was actually a surgeon, a really, really early, really early surgeon in China.
The balls on those guys.
Dude,
you know, like seriously, like oh my god.
So like Watteau, he figured out that like opium was a really good sedative, and so what he would do is he would get people really, really blitzed out on opium. He would do the surgery, and then he would pack antimicrobial herbs. Of course, he didn't know about bacteria, but he knew that these herbs would keep you from. They would describe it as like rotting, you know. So they'd say, like all right, he would pack these herbs, and he would also pack cannabis into the wound as sort of pain control. And so it's kind of fascinating because he figured out how to not only anesthetize at a low level, but he also did like a bolus for localized pain management and infection. And this was like, 1,000 years ago.
Right,
Really, really predating stuff. So Watteau came with the 5 animal play, but a lot of the other forms we do come from old school Chinese martial sort of culture. And I think what's interesting about how these kinds of military-based ideas are useful to us in the modern era is that, generally speaking, like the troops that were healthiest were the ones that were going to win in battle. And so if they could like keep their joints healthy, if they can keep their backs healthy, and that's still true today. That's why fitness is such a priority in all those services.
I mean, even like I'm feeling... I mean, I'm 45, so every day that I don't stretch, I feel it. You know what I mean? It's like
I'm 45
something.
Too, I feel,
So every day that I don't have some sort of intentional movement to either do some sort of strength training or flexibility or stability, it's like, I feel it. So like, it's a priority to do like every day to stay healthy. And then, like, I just had a friend who broke his leg. He's 48. He was skateboarding, and he broke his fibula in 2 spots at the top below the knee and at the bottom right above the ankle.
Damn.
And tore the ligaments that hold those bones together. Like he had surgery a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and he got pins in it. And so like as soon as I saw that, I'm like, I don't skateboard, and I don't want to be walking anywhere and have that happen. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to the gym. I'm going to do some squats. I'm going to do something to keep my bones strong,
some
right?
Slow walking, baby.
Slow walking.
That's the way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it at Wegmans. I'll try slow walking.
Yeah.
I'll just do
Give
one
it a
aisle.
shot.
I'll just try it. I'll see how long. I'll see how long it'll take me to get from one end of the aisle to the other.
You know what's funny is once you get the sort of structure of the walking, you can apply it at like not just normal walking speed, but even like speed walking, you know? And one of the things that a lot of students find is that their sort of walking dexterity improves, where I remember it was kind of fun because we all trained this as a cohort together and we were in New York City. And what you would see is like over the course of the months and then years is like people would start moving in crowds differently. So like they might start like kind of using these interesting little quarter side steps to like weave through the foot traffic. Or if they were doing a different kind of martial art, they might like root down and sort of power through. Fun story is 2 of my training brothers and I, we got used to eating a big meal after training. You know, you train for like 8 hours and you'd be starving. And so we get out, we're in Midtown Manhattan, SantaCon. You ever seen this?
Yes.
It's fucking Santas everywhere. And they're all drunk. Like, so we walk out and like, you know, we're in the middle of this throng of drunk Santas. This one Santa like barfs right in front of me. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, and so we try to find any place we can get food. And finally we find this place and it's filled with Santas, you know, like, but the host is like, no, you can come in. We have a non-Santa area. And I was like, okay.
Perfect.
And so it was like this study of martial arts slow walking where my friend Wes, he's a very, very talented, amazing martial artist who trains as hard as anybody I've ever met. Like he's who I talk to when I need to get inspired to train harder.
Nice.
So Wes like makes a wedge and he starts like slow walking. He's using his root and he's literally like some kind of a machine like wedging through. Santas are bouncing off of him. And so we kind of follow Wes like making this trail. And then, you know, you can see this other guy who's a much bigger dude than either of us. He's just letting the Santas, you know, the Santas are bouncing. Yeah. So he's kind of like bouncing them off. And it was cool.
That's
so that's
funny.
your Wegmans adventure.
Yeah, that's right.
Bounce people off. Yeah.
I'll save that for New Year's Eve. No, Christmas Eve. We got to do our Christmas shopping at Wegmans. So I'll root down. And
yeah. Make a wedge.
That's right.
It's like, come on, honey, we're doing the flying V. Let's go.
I learned this on the Dudecast.
What else? What else we got for level 2? Like, what else? Any other standouts from level 1?
I think that the thing to understand going into level 2 is that you're really, I mean, this is true with level 1 as well. And certainly I think everybody should do level 1 and level 2. With level 2, you're really getting incredibly complex practices that you can work on for a lifetime, you know? And so it's like, if there's sort of a beginning of a journey with Qigong, if you do a level 1 and a level 2 with us, what you'll find is that you have enough work that you could very comfortably, you know, do Qigong for the next decade and feel great about it.
Cool.
On the other hand, you know, I think a level 3 would probably put this all together into a large scale form, either from Tai Chi or from Bagua. So, you know, you could like then kind of, if level 1 is the the basic sort of letters and everything, level 2 is like making a composition with that. You know, a level 3 would be to like write a small book, you know.
Got it. Yeah, like a story, like a full story.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I think that by the end of level 2, you really are incredibly well versed in moving your body in every range of motion that a body can move. And there's neighborhoods to it that you could spend a lot of time exploring, you know?
Definitely seems like that foundation is good, but this seems like, there's like you said, avenues. We're like, oh, I could like almost specialties sort of. We're like, I could dive into this part of this, either practice or set or philosophy about it, and just like kind of dive down that rabbit hole and learn
Totally.
about it. Yeah.
I mean, most of us reach a point when you get really into it that, as the saying goes, you'd have more gong fu than you could do in a day, you know? And it's like, because like at first you kind of think like, oh, I want to practice everything, you know? So I just want to practice all the sets, you know? And that even by the end of level 1 becomes at least impractical, where it's like, okay, am I going to do like an hour and a half of Qigong every single day?
Right.
And of course, you know, what you do is you kind of have a targeted goal where you want to, all right, I want to practice the Baiduan Jin for 100 days. And, you know, as you play it, it evolves and your body starts changing and you create what we call shenfa, or a movement pattern out of it. And so with level 2, and I think what's kind of interesting is like, you could come to level 2 as basically a beginner. You know, I'm going to be teaching how, you know, the posture goes. I'm just not going to be spending 2 hours a week explaining the theory behind why.
Got it.
You know, so like if you were somebody who's maybe taken a couple Qigong classes, this is starting, you're like, shoot, I wish I had gotten the level 1 because now I'm going to have to wait a whole year.
Right.
Don't, you know, like come on into level 2. We'll catch you up. But what it is that you are going to be leaving level 2 with like, I think, a very sophisticated expression of the human body, and being able to really kind of chew on that and work on that, but also share it with others. You know, learning how to teach these movements as you're doing them is something that I think that is really high value for people.
That's so cool. Is it the same cast of characters teaching with you?
Yeah. So Catherine and I are definitely going to be, you know, in the core of all the classes.
Yep.
I've been working with Catherine, getting her, you know, familiarized with the forms. And then you'll certainly see some of the same familiar faces as, you know, you go through the program. I'm sure we'll get to enjoy listening to Josh beforehand.
Yes, I'll be there.
And yeah, it's basically the same sort of infrastructure built around level 1. So if you're used to level 1 and you've done a level 1, like you'll find level 2, it's like slipping right back into a very familiar, happy place, you know?
Yeah, what you guys have done with just the organizational aspect of everything, and you guys are a well-oiled machine. It feels like. It feels like you guys are getting better every time. And Catherine is incredible, and
Catherine is the best.
All of the teachers that contribute are brilliant, I think, and it's like it's awesome. That's cool that they're going to be a part of the level.
I mean,
2.
as far as like what I do on the back end, I guess after the classes and stuff, like just I totally admire the structure of how it's delivered.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that way about. I'm biased. I feel that way about just about everything we do. But I mean, I am just impressed.
It's our goal,
right? No, I just like it's so good to see. That's like that level and commitment to like not only the material and wanting to to pass it on, but like commitment to like how do I deliver it best? Because that's the teacher, right? Like it's like you can have all the info, but if you can't communicate it in a meaningful way, it's almost useless. So I mean I can appreciate. I love watching and like listening to the Qigong team work because I think it's so effective.
Well, I feel really blessed and lucky to have had the opportunity to start teaching this so young, you know, and to have really tremendous opportunities sort of open up. You know, I started teaching this stuff at a drug and alcohol rehab when I was like 23 years old, you know. But then teaching it at the college level, we had an acupuncture program up at the chiropractic college. And that's where, you know, like you actually have to use Bloom's taxonomy and like create a syllabus and actually have like a real curriculum.
Yeah.
And again, super lucky that the school valued Qigong as much as it did because most acupuncture schools have like one credit class in Qigong.
Yeah.
We had a year of solid Qigong training.
Cool.
So we did all the forms that we do in Yoga Farm were professional training for acupuncturists at the college level. So I've just had like a lot of support and luck and training in helping to like hone down and figure out how to deliver this stuff, you know, in a way that is, you know, demonstrating the ability to teach and discuss it. Because that's another thing is like, how do you teach people to teach something?
Right. That's a whole other level. Like not only just conveying the material so an adult learner, which can be tricky in its own venue because like people that have been outside of a classroom for a decade and are like, okay, I want to take a class. Like it's harder in a lot of ways than a teenager, right? Like they're at least in almost.
Well, educational trauma, like we talked about in that episode.
Yeah,
it's
that
like,
too.
That kind of stuff can play a part in people's ability to be willing to learn, you know, like, and I think that it takes the right instructor to really, and team to really make it so that it's like not re-traumatizing or re-triggering.
Yeah, seriously.
Like in a way, like, and it's like, cause people will turn off immediately. And because, especially in an online course, it's like, there has to be that welcoming, that intrinsic interest from your instructor. Like, I think what I love to see is all of your level 1 students after the fact talking about you guys because it's so, I mean, it's like that. It's not why you guys do it. And it's not like it isn't looking for a result. It never is the goal, or maybe it is the goal, but it's always nice to hear just how much people enjoy you all as instructors. Like, because that is, I mean, that's not the content. It's like your delivery, you know, like, which is like so special. I think that that's something that is a incredible skill online. Like, it isn't difficult. Like, when people are in person and you're able to like be within the physicality of it all together. And so even working with the technology the way you guys have and the way that it's developed, I think that it's come so far since the beginning. And like that alone is like why it's so exciting, I think, for your level 1 students who are going to get an opportunity to come back to continue this journey with you guys is really cool. It's like like when we see people come from Kundalini warrior to spiritual warrior, it's like they speak the vernacular. They understand. They understand that's like huge. What they're going to get and why they want to come back, you know, like, and so I'm so excited to see all the faces come back and the combination of courses and alumni and stuff like that is always really cool, in a level 2 course, and especially when you're delivering a product like you guys are.
Well, and I mean, a lot of it really does, I think, boil down to the organization that, you know, puts the support in place for those students. And man, you know, like I work here and I totally, but like I've never worked for a place that's run as effectively as Yoga Farm, and that is so student focused and student driven. You know, I mean, it's really rare. Most places, you know, the quarterly shareholder profit statement is the real focus. The key, right. You know, or in academia, it's about like the accreditation.
100%.
You know, so it's like, okay, we got to meet these standards. We got to make sure. So it's really like, it's more about like what your syllabus looks like than it is about how happy your students
100%.
are. Right. Yoga Farm is about the student getting the best possible, you know, learning available to them in the most accessible way. And then, you know, helping to stimulate folks who might not have been able to do that learning. I mean, I've just never worked for a place quite like it, where it's like, you guys put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. And I mean,
so I respect that.
I mean, that's all Jeannie. That's all my wife right there. I mean, we've known each other for 12, 13 years, and like high school teachers to then working adult education, like we both taught at the massage school when it was here. Like I was a teacher there, and Jeannie was in administration and the ed director for Point. So like we have been around education for almost decades, right?
Yeah.
And we just, these conversations don't stop at the office. We always talk about, like, it's what we do and live around. So it's like we always talk about like educational theory, philosophy, like what we notice, what works, what doesn't work. So like this has been a long time in development, and like I am just in awe of like what she has been able to, with the help of the staff, like put together.
What we've
like,
all
like
done.
you said, like, what we all done, and like
definitely
money where your mouth is, right? Like
That's
we have that vision, and so like it's really exciting to see, especially with the Qigong program that's relatively new.
Yeah,
I mean, with revamped.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it kind of demonstrates the model in a lot of ways, where it's like it's because I think somebody who's as great of a teacher as Jeannie is, and sort of like as much of a dynamo, like she could make it work even if the structure didn't work.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Like she could probably
Her
sell a
experience level,
program,
yeah,
and she would
without a doubt.
she would make it work. But like she's really created a model, all of you have, where it's like now you can replicate that.
Right.
And that really proves, that validates the model, right? You know,
Totally.
so it's like, that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
The
Cool
format
thing.
is tough, you know, like it's like I think that keeping people interested through an online course is like the ultimate challenge, because like adults have their lives, like it's like they're not just in school, you know, like their it is almost like it is a secondary thought, like, and so to keep people inspired and invested and keep learning is like a miracle. It's like it really is like a miracle to keep people interested and invested, and I think that it is a testament to all the intention and energy that goes into it that makes it that way.
It strikes me that the live sort of recorded model really is, like, because honestly, when Judy first approached me, or when I first saw programs like this arising in the beginning of the pandemic, I didn't know, you know, I had never really taught live online. I had done recordings that were sold online, but I had never. And, you know, the thing that is so fascinating is how interconnected and tight-knit that tribe of people becomes.
Yeah.
Where it's like you see these faces and it's like you're in the room with them.
Yeah.
You know, and so that part really, like, it never occurred to me that it's like, oh, if a student wants a correction, I have like my whole TV to look at them with. And like that's different when you're in a room with 60 people or something.
It's true.
You know? It's a little harder to catch.
Yes. And the safety of your own home. You know, like it provides like almost an extra guard for vulnerability, where it's like, I think it's funny. And since the pandemic, people are starting to come out of their shell a little bit, coming out of their homes more and more. But I think people fell into the safety of practicing at home, you know, like, and that's what we're trying to provide is like the mixture of both. And so you guys do a masterful job at it.
Yeah, like the tagline for this podcast is cultivating community.
Yeah,
and that's just not for this. I mean, that's
everything.
The mission, right?
Absolutely.
It's like how do you have and form a community, not just like a class of people, but an actual community, online, virtually, and sometimes in person with this material.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for level 2. Just
Me
based
too.
on, I'm excited to learn mud walking. I think I need to. I think that would benefit.
So much fun.
Everyone I know would benefit.
And I'll be silent. I won't get yelled at from the other room anymore.
Yeah, and then there's crane stepping, where you get to do kind of Monty Python silly walks, permanent silly walks. Phoenix walking. There's a lot of really, really cool walking Qigong out there.
That's awesome.
Well, I am going to be checking it out.
Yeah, me
So,
too.
This starts end of January,
That's
and I
right.
know if you check out the website, there'll be Q&As available throughout for every.
Yep, I think
now
we've
and
got one at 11. Well, this is irrelevant when it airs, but yeah, we got one coming right
on
up.
Thursday morning at 11
Yeah.
Thursday
today.
morning. But I'm sure that information will be on our website, and we'll have it out for you. But yeah, looking forward to it. This is exciting.
Awesome.
So for the Wi-Fi Pod and Qigong Level 2, this is Matt.
This is Brian.
And this is Josh.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.